The Politics podcast is brought to you, as always, by patreon.com/JURY. Support not only this show, but also my one mic show, Jury. 2 shows, 1 place to support it. Also, we are going to be doing a Jury in Your House tour in March. If you want to get in on that action, then go ahead and support the Patreon. Patreon.com/JURY. But enough of talking about how we support the show. What do you say we just do the damn thing? Oh no. Oh no. Here we go. Who's ready for some politics? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to this Austin, Texas edition of Politics. My name is Justin Robert Young. I will be your host. A lot to talk about, obviously. I'm just, if there's one thing that you guys should know, it is that I am honest with you all to a fault. And I will let you guys know that this is being recorded about an hour and a half late, largely because I was up very late last night. I don't even know how late it was. It was late to me. It was late in my liver because there was an 18-year-old, 1988 was when it started to be bottled, a bottle of scotch that I decided to consume a lot of. There's also a little girl now making her way into the studio. Hi, Callie. I'm working right now. I can't help you out. I'm in the Brian Brushwood studio, which is amazing. It has these DSLRs. It's got all these mics and stuff like that, but it also has roving little girls, which is adorable. But you want to know what? That is the kind of warts and all broadcast that we bring to you guys. Here we go. Let's go ahead and not deal with the scotch. Let's understand. All right, hold on. We're gonna deal with this. Callie, do you want to come and say hi to everybody? Do you want to come and say hi? Come on over here. Here we go. This is Brian Brushwood's youngest daughter, Callie. How are you doing today? You doing good? Uh-huh. What today on the show we're talking about executive orders. Do you know what an executive order is? No? You don't? An executive order is what happens when the president says that he, as the executive branch of the government, just says that something's going to get done. So it just gets done. You don't have to debate it. There's no checks and balances. It's just one guy saying a thing. All of a sudden, it just gets done. Does that sound like something that you would like to do?
Yeah, but I just want because that's why I don't sign.
I don't know if anybody understood that, but is that a yes or a no? Oh, she's disgusted. She's disgusted by the state of our country. All right, here you gotta go and go talk to your mom because I gotta finish this up right here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Callie Brushwood, her political punditry debut, right here on the Politics podcast, where we not only bring you the irreverent takes that we always do, but we also bring you the takes, flaming hot takes from the lips of babes. Okay. That obviously is the big news right now, though. Executive orders. Donald Trump tweeted out that today was going to be a big day for national security, and the two things, the double dragon of that was A, we are building a wall. It's not just a clever catchphrase anymore, folks. He says that by executive order, construction on a border wall will begin within months. Also, And this was maybe my favorite. Low key, this was my favorite of the Trump promises. When the conversation came up about a ban on Muslims, right? My favorite phrase, and it was something that Trump said a lot. It sounded better when it was just in the syntax of it. It sounded better when it came out of his mouth because he is an off-the-cuff kind of guy, right? So when he says the phrase, we want a temporary ban on Muslims until we figure things out, that sounds like it's like your friend talking to you, right? But I remember when he first started to catch fire, all of a sudden, super PACs and money was coming in for him to make television ads. And so you had all the normal like trappings of a political television ad, but it was all of Trump's promises. So like some of them are fine, like the build a wall thing. Like Donald Trump will build a wall. It's like, okay, there we go. That sounds, it's what Trump says. Now this political baritone announcer guy is saying it. Makes sense. But when the political baritone announcer guy says Donald Trump will issue a temporary ban on Muslims until we figure things out. Like that it doesn't sound the same. Donald Trump just saying we're going to do it until we figure this out. That sounds like a relatable person. Political baritone guy going until we figure things out. It's like, no, you're the voice. The voice should know what everything. You are the omniscient voice. You should already know how to figure things out. But that's the second executive order. We are now, let's go ahead and get the exact verbiage on this so I don't get emails on it. A temporary ban on refugees. U.S. President Donald Trump, this is a Reuters article, is expected to sign an executive order starting on Wednesday that include a temporary ban on most refugees and a suspension of visas for citizens of Syria and 6 other Middle Eastern and African countries, say congressional aides and immigration experts briefed on the matter. This is apparently from, or this is going to happen until there are more aggressive vetting options. And, of course, one of the 2 big executive orders. Oh, wait, are we getting news here? Mary Tyler Moore has died? Mary Tyler Moore has died. Man, 2016. Leaking out into 2017. I'm curious to see which way this ball bounces, because I'm getting some people here in the in the chat room that are like, well, I can't say I'm against the refugee ban, but I can't say I'm for it either. I find it hard to really make any broad sweeping generalizations on immigration questions, because I think that we do have a broken immigration system, and I don't mean necessarily the border wall element. I think that in general, we've had a very fraught immigration policy in this country for the last 75 years. You know, the history of our immigration policy is very, very odd and oftentimes downright racist. So if you're going to start nipping and tucking based on the system that we have, I don't quite, it doesn't sound good to me. I don't quite think that the refugee problem in America, especially from these countries, are necessarily the same kind of refugee problems that they're having in, let's say, Germany or other parts of Europe, just because of the geography of it all. But I don't know. Like, we're gonna you know, we're gonna see where it goes. W. Scott as one says, I don't necessarily like the excluding based on religion. Well, I mean, that element, the religious element is not necessarily part of this, but, you know, who knows? Who knows exactly what the increased, more aggressive vetting is going to be. You know, maybe that will be a part of it. We don't know. We don't know. And anybody who tells you that they do know is lying to you. As for the wall, there has been no shortage of no shortage of people who have pointed out that the idea of a border wall is far more of a symbolism than it is necessarily something that, is going to do much good, right? Most illegal immigrants come in on planes. They come in and overstay visas. So, there's that, right? A wall doesn't necessarily stop people from, I totally lost my train of thought. Because I'm trying to look at the chat room. All right, hashtag Scotch moment right there. I just got Scotch taped, dog. A wall doesn't solve all of our problems. That being said, if a border wall is hand in hand with actually revamping the immigration procedure that we have, I think it's, I don't know. I mean, it's never been something that's spoken to me, but I can understand that the idea of just getting a zero-sum new start on Mexican immigration is attractive to people. And beyond the borderline, racist element too. I mean, I think that I can understand why it speaks to people. I, however, don't think that it's a great idea unless you also make it easier for people to get into the country that we want. I think that's another big thing, is that keeping people out is only really one half of the problem. Because if it is too hard to let people legally immigrate into this country, then I don't think that we're really solving any problem. We're just setting a further hurdle for people to clear. And so if, let's say we build a wall, and let's say and it's the biggest wall you have ever seen. It is an amazing wall. It's got the big beautiful door. No, that's what I think. I don't want to hear about the wall. I want to hear about the big beautiful door. That's what I want to hear about. I want to hear about I want to hear about how people, if they're kept out, are now able to come in legally. But enough about my opinion. How does this ball bounce in terms of public opinion? Well, I gotta tell you, in general, I've been having a lot of deja vu. Because a lot of the stuff that I am reading now from my friends on the left sounds a lot like what my friends on the right were saying 8 years ago. Right? Or even more recently to 8 years. There's a lot of angst right now about executive orders, which is funny because I've been hearing a lot of angst about executive orders from people on the right for the past 8 years. That executive orders are unconstitutional. They are a reach of power from the federal government, and they are doing almost irreparable harm to our Constitution. That the checks and balances that we have in the Constitution are there for a reason, and each time the president takes unilateral action to go ahead and do something that he can't go through Congress for, that's a problem. That's an overreach. This is, again, not me commenting now. This is what I've been hearing for the past 8 years. And now we've got a lot of executive orders. We got an executive order on the Dakota Access Pipeline. We got an executive order on the wall. We got an executive order on this temporary refugee ban. We're going to see exactly how they wind up, going through with this healthcare law, which we're going to get to in a second. But here's just what I want to know from my conservative listeners. I want to hear from the conservative listeners. How do you feel about executive orders? Because I know right now liberals are going to be super hot about it. So I want to know from the winning side as of now, I want to know just how you think. How do you think? I'm curious. TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. TVZ Gun in the chat also reminds me that that there is a tweet. I mean, again, here's our favorite segment on the show, things Donald Trump tweeted. That if, Trump mentioned in his inauguration speech that he will stop the American carnage. Carnage, of course, that he is referring to is the Spider-Man villain who was created after Venom's symbiote got onto and bonded with a serial killer. Also, the subject of the Maximum Carnage video game. So, what was that? Okay. He was not talking about Carnage, the Spider-Man villain. He was talking about the death and destruction that has wrought our shores, and he specifically singled out Chicago, the toddling town with the big shoulders, city with too many nicknames, Windy City, my kind of town. Says that if the bloodshed does not stop in Chicago, that he will send in the feds. I don't know exactly what that would look like. I don't know exactly how that solution, would pan out. But I am curious. Because also, what does a law and order administration look like in 2016, 2017? Does the federal government just seize control? Do they take over the mayor's office? Do they put troops on the ground? Also, are we comfortable with the idea that there would be a standing police force that would specifically be beholden to the federal government? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that used to be the domain of the Alex Joneses of the world. Right? That this is what a tyranny looks like, is a army that is a domestic force that is beholden to the federal government. So I don't know. I mean, again, we're just in the upside down right now. And I'm not saying for the Trump fans that it's good or bad. In fact, it's what Trump promised, is that all of a sudden all the old rules aren't gonna apply no more. Now we are going to do things the way they ought to be. The way that if politicians had didn't have their heads up their asses, this is how we would handle things. That was what he ran on. And now we are getting it. Whether or not it makes sense, well, we're going to find out. Whether or not it's effective, we're going to find out. The curious thing in the interim is whether or not it's popular, which is why watching his approval rating is very, very interesting. His approval rating has tightened. Seems as if as we go further and further, there is indeed a bit of a bounce for him to, he's a little bit more popular. I guess we didn't talk about this whole the whole inauguration thing. We didn't talk about, since we last spoke, we haven't talked about the crowds. We haven't talked about Sean Spicer. We haven't talked about the Women's March. I went to the Women's March in Oakland on Saturday. It was a very, very Oakland event. It was early, 10 a.m., a lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of signs with the C word, a lot of pot smoke. I mean, again, it's Oakland. Obviously, the turnout for the Women's March was certainly something that was impressive, insanely impressive. I mean, anytime that you can get that amount of people out there. However, I was left with two fairly counterintuitive thoughts. Number one, my initial thought, just by looking at everything, was like, obviously the places where a lot of these gigantic Women's March demonstrations were in very liberal areas. Places that voted for Hillary anyway. But in an election that was decided by so few votes, in so few counties, you almost have to wonder if there was just a little bit more enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton, if she would have done better. And what we saw on Saturday, hate it or love it, was a lot of enthusiasm. Now, where it goes is the larger question. It obviously did not, these were not big, gigantic rallies that were happening when Hillary Clinton was running to keep Donald Trump out of office. This is a reaction to Donald Trump getting elected. So on one hand, you kind of can't help but think from Hillary Clinton's perspective, hey, could have used that sandbagging asses out here marching before Election Day, maybe close a little bit of this enthusiasm gap, which of course then leads me to my apparently my favorite point. All roads lead to Hillary Clinton's not a great candidate, which we both knew and didn't know. We knew she was not a great candidate. We did not know how not good of a candidate she was until she loses to Donald Trump. So, that's my first thought. My second thought is I almost wonder what this does. I very much wonder if this is something that has much of an effect. Because nobody got my email when I was marching. I saw some signs for causes. I saw a lot of signs that represented people's political views. But I didn't see... I saw far more things that were just like F Donald Trump, basically. And not a lot of things that were, here's how we change things. So there was a lot of, a lot of back and forth on what this kind of march represented and how many people were doing it and where it would go going forward. So the first thing, obviously, was that there was more people there at the Women's March, especially in Washington, D.C., than appeared to be there for the inauguration. Okay, so there's that. But then the other natural, kind of comparison points that you want to make to this are other protest movements that have happened over the last few years. Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, Tea Party. Now, I'm naming these all because they can all be different comparison points and not necessarily the same thing. Because they're all very, very different. But I will say this. Of those three, only the Tea Party gave people candidates to vote for. Only the Tea Party really announced their, with the movement that they started, they let people know that if you are down with this, we got 2 words for you. We're running. And it really gave a shot in the arm to, at that point was a fairly flagging Republican Party. A Republican Party that got decimated in the presidential election, that had lost both houses. And the resurgent Tea Party movement was something that put a lot of Republicans into office. So I wonder whether or not the Women's March is going to be something that can deliver that kind of fruit to the Democrats. Because although there were things on the periphery that certainly seemed to be, let's build a political machine out of this, the core was we hate the president and we think it's offensive that he is our president. There was more talk about the Billy Bush tape than there was about midterms. And again, it was very impressive to see everybody out there. And I don't want to take away from what it was on that day. But, Fritz X007 says, it's only been 4 days. No, you're right. But when you have a moment like that, when you have a moment where all, CNN is going wall to wall, just pointing a camera at these Women's March protesters, right? It doesn't speak. You can project future actions based on past results. And if at that moment where it was just gigantic, huge, a cacophony of sound, and that's why this person's running for president. And that's why we are now endorsing this person to run for office. And they are going to run on the following platform. Then I think that's not good. That's not ideal. It certainly shows a lot of solidarity. I mean, I also think that the Women's March is a great name for an event, because if you don't want to go, now the natural other side of it is like, wait, you're not down with women? What, do you hate women now? But I don't know if it's great for a movement. I don't know if it's a great platform to put people into office in the midterms. I just don't know. I don't know. And you're getting a lot of this. You're getting a lot of what should I do? What can I do? Reverend Buck says, could any of these marches Saturday have nominated a person to be running when it's still 2 years until midterm elections? You can certainly you can make somebody a star. You can heighten somebody's profile to the point where now they're going to be on CNN every week, where now they are going to, where people are going to see a lot of them. And now all of a sudden they are a part of it and they are branded in that brand. Our amazing Night Attack producer and Weird Things producer, Neshcom. Pro-life is a bad name because I love death and I want to die. There we go. Okay. Let's move on from this into something that I think is far more into the wheelhouse of this particular program. That is Sean Spicer. Oh my God. This Sean Spicer. Spicy Spicer. Oh. Like the chicken patty at Wendy's for which he is named. He is indeed a spicy little biscuit. Sean Spicer made his debut as a press secretary and immediately demonstrated himself to be insanely memeable. He was wearing a suit that was about 3 sizes too big. He decided to engage the press in a fairly hostile manner, questioning their motivations and their facts on the attendance of the inauguration. He did stretch the truth, lied, as some people said. And a lot of people have talked about that. A lot of people talked about the Kellyanne Conway alternative facts thing. Yeah, all right. I'm going to go ahead and say I think the alternative facts thing got blown up a little bit more than it. I think the alternative facts thing is more about the election and people wanting to beat up on Kellyanne Conway than it is about exactly what she said. I didn't particularly find it to be this big Orwellian thing. I think that what she meant to say was an alternative set of facts and not the newspeak alternative facts. And now it blew up. That's fine. It's politics. That's what happens. So, yeah, Sean Spicer lied. I don't care. Whatever. I guess also for everybody who's reacting like the press secretary is always the place where we're supposed to get unvarnished truth. Come on, man. Come on. I don't expect it at the very least. If y'all expect it, that's fine. I don't expect it. So was this bald-faced and maybe a little bit more brazen than it normally is? Sure. But is it the end of the world? No. I don't think that he necessarily sullied an unsullyable office by telling these fibs. Whatever. It's a liar. Press secretary. I mean, come on. Let's get into the important stuff with Sean Spicer, because now that he is in the public eye, people are vetting him. Some might say extreme vetting him. And part of that is going back into his Twitter history and finding out what he is passionate about. One of the things that he's very passionate about. I want to get these right. One of the things that he's very, very, very passionate about is Dippin' Dots. Dippin' Dots? The ice cream of the future? Yes, Dippin' Dots. Sean Spicer, the press secretary to the president, has got beef with Dippin' Dots. This apparently dates back to 2010. This is a direct tweet. Sean Spicer, at Sean Spicer, Dippin' Dots is not the ice cream of the future. Big shot. Taking their slogan right back in your face, Dippin' Dots. Pa-pa! He then had this to say on September 22nd, 2011. I think I have said this before, but Dippin' Dots are not the ice cream of the future. Bam. Again. Right in the mouth. Sean Spicer then, in November 4th, 2011. Ice cream of the past. Dippin' Dots files for bankruptcy. JC Calhoun in the chat. Speaking truth to power. Finally. Swipe the legs out of Big Dot. Come on. Yeah, ice cream of the future. Sorry, Orwell. You don't tell me what the ice cream of the future is. I'll decide. The people will decide. Sean Spicer was not done. 2015. If Dippin' Dots was truly the ice cream of the future, they would have not run out of vanilla. CC at Washington Nationals. Apparently, I guess he goes to a lot of baseball games because this is all during baseball season. And he likes to bitch about Dippin' Dots. This is a thing he likes to do. I'm also here to say that I'm with him. I'm with him. I am with Sean Spicer. I am with the Trump administration's press secretary when it comes to Dippin' Dots. Dippin' Dots are awful. I mean, come on. Come on. What are we going to do? What are we going to have these little balls? They don't taste like anything until they're in your mouth. You don't get any of the consistency of ice cream. What's the best part of ice cream? It's consistency and it tastes delicious. But it's also not a complicated thing, right? It's a lot of sugar. Sugar, chocolate, fruit, fresh fruit. That's what you want in an ice cream. Well, you're not going to get it in these little tiny pellets? I mean, what the hell are we? Are we in some sort of dystopian hellscape? Are we on? If we were living on the moon, and maybe it was too expensive to actually refrigerate or freeze ice cream to a certain level that we could enjoy it, then yes, maybe then Dippin' Dots. Maybe then this freeze-dried garbage Maybe. But before we get to a moon colony, when we are here in the United States of America and we can create delicious ice cream, tell you what, you go up to Ben and Jerry and you spit right in their face. You spit right in their face with this Dippin' Dots. Okay? Oh, let me just go get a tub of Dippin' Dots. Oh, let me get a spoon. You're going to have dots all over your goddamn floor. They're going to fall over. They're going to start rolling under your couch. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? Huh? I don't think so. Dippin' Dots. I'll tell you what, man. I hope I get to be press secretary one day so people can cut this clip out on Twitch and just show everybody that the current press secretary has another feud with Dippin' Dots. And by the way, also apparently Sean Spicer is on the hot seat, so there is a chance that not only me but also you, dear listener, will one day be able to be the press secretary. You know, one last thing, and then we can get into some of the fun stuff, including our Korean scandal update. But there's a lot of these articles that are coming out now about how disorganized the Trump administration is. All I'll say is get used to it. Even if Donald Trump was somebody that was more ordered, which there is no guarantee, there is no sign to say that he is a very ordered human being. He tends to run things very loosey-goosey. Anybody who came from this kind of private sector was going to have a tremendous learning curve. And I don't think that even past, into year 4, well, really, he's going to have 2.5 years, then he's going to start campaigning again, right? Although, the way he's acting now, I think we could probably just assume that he is campaigning again already. I think we're just get used to it. There's going to be a lot of people fired. There's going to be a lot of people leaking. There's going to be a lot of people. We're going to get a very, very inside view of what government looks like. That's actually a cool thing to think about, because I don't think that there's any element of message discipline within that organization. I think everybody's going to be fighting, and everybody who's not winning is going to be leaking. All right, here we go. We had a lot of suggestions, by the way. A lot of suggestions for a song to play for our Korean scandal update. Let's go ahead and get one of them queued up here. Oh. This is our Korean scandal update. And let me this one came from Steve. You asked for opinions on the Korea segment. I think Daddy by Psy would be perfect. Park is the daughter of a dictator who is riddled with scandal and was eventually assassinated by his own security chief. The hook on the song is I got it from my daddy, which is a line that definitely befits Park. Also, the video is disturbingly weird, so there's that. So here we go. This is our intro. All right, here we go. The opposition lawmakers are now facing scrutiny over a nude portrayal of Park. I got it from my daddy. All right. South Korea's main opposition party on Tuesday decided to refer a lawmaker to its ethics panel because it was hosting an exhibition that included a painting portraying President Park Geun-hye in the nude. Representative Pyo Chang-won organized the exhibition in the lobby of the National Assembly building. The exhibition featured the picture titled Dirty Sleep, which parodies Edouard Manet's Olympia. An official to the party said the Supreme Council held an emergency meeting and decided to bring the issue to the Ethics Committee. It was inappropriate to display such a picture, even if it was intended as satire, the official said. Ooh, dirty sleep. Dirty sleep. But that's not the big news. Here's the big news. Choi Soon-sil in full meltdown. Of course, Choi Soon-sil, correct me if I'm wrong. She is the... All right, so for those of you who have not followed this, everything is breaking loose in Korea. The president, who, as we mentioned before, daughter of a former dictator that was killed by his own security chief, now faces this gigantic scandal wherein she is accused of allowing her cult leader best friend to have undue influence on the government. This has had hilarious tentacles that have stretched out far and wide throughout Korea, including Samsung, the cult leader's daughter, who apparently was the beneficiary of fixing horse matches. Got into school she wasn't supposed to get into. I believe that Choi Soon-sil is the cult leader. T2T2 in the chat room, please let me know if I have misrepresented anything. So here we go. Choi Soon-sil had a full meltdown as she was being taken to a special prosecutor. She came out of a minibus. She was handcuffed and wearing a beige-colored jail uniform. 2 female guards escorted Choi to the press area where reporters and photographers were waiting. Perp walk. At this point, Choi not only started to talk, but scream. And they had to drag her to the elevator. Reporters are taken aback since suspects usually lay low and ignore any questions asked, but not Choi. Here we go. This is what she yelled. This special prosecutor can't be from a democracy. He is threatening to destroy my young grandchild. He's trying to condemn us to live in sin. This special prosecutor is not from a free democratic country. Plus, he's forcing me to confess that President Park and I are co-conspirators, that we are jointly responsible for this. Apparently at that point, somebody yelled, "Okay, we heard you." And then she finally, before getting stuffed into the elevator, "This is cruel and unfair, treating my children and even young grandchildren like this." Oh, man. This is getting good. This is getting good. Thank you, Korea. Thank you for giving us this. It means so much to me. So much you'll never know. All right. Well, you want to know what? I mean, we could probably just get into emails, right? We got all these executive orders going around. There's big National Security Day today, but you want to know what's right around the corner? What's right around the corner is another big promise from President Trump on the campaign trail, and that is to repeal and replace Obamacare. If only there was a way that we could determine exactly how people felt about Obamacare. Oh, wait, there is? Yes, it is the subject of this episode's poll. Dance, poll, dance, poll, dance. All right, everybody. CBS News poll taken from the 13th to the 16th. 1,257 people were surveyed. For or against Obamacare. Oh, is the music low? Here we go. All right, for or against? Against. 47%. For. 48%. That is a +1 spread for Obamacare. Healthcare approval. Now, here's the one thing that I don't know from this. Because it was just listed. Here, you want to know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at the CBS News poll. This was part of their, in general, a lot of their poll questions. So you got like, questions about Donald Trump's leadership, yada, yada, yada. I want to see the exact wording. All right, here we go. Let's see if we can find the exact question here. Do you think the 2000... All right, here we go. Do you think that the 2010 healthcare law should be repealed immediately, even if Congress hasn't agreed on a new law to replace it? Or do you think the 2010 healthcare law should be repealed only after Congress has agreed on a new healthcare law to replace it? This is a little bonus. Oh, crap. A little bonus poll dance. Hold on. Little bonus poll dance. Repeal immediately without replacement. 47%. Repeal only if replaced. 50%. Don't know, no answer. 3%. Well, if you like that, healthcare. All right. So there we go. I mean, not a lot of new news here, right? This is a very controversial law. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people have now become dependent on it, and we're going to go forward. I'm curious to see whether or not they try to repeal it without a replacement. I think that is going to be something that we will have to wait and see on. You can email the show, theyoungamerican@gmail.com, and I will read them at the end of the podcast. Matt writes, "Hey man, I'm hoping you can help me through this one. Ever since the election, I've had an intense suspicion of poll numbers. All the sources I trusted were completely wrong. So now that Trump approval ratings are being reported, I have no idea who to believe. How much stock should I put in these, and how can I tell the legit numbers from the bullshit?" Well, I mean, number one, understand that polls are our best understanding of things. They're hard to gather. They're expensive to gather. They're hard to do. So, we can't look at them as just the end-all, be-all. What I will say is the things that were the most wrong during the election were a lot of these aggregate sites. Sites that became very, very popular in the wake of Nate Silver and 538. So you had a lot of these predictive things that were like, oh, well, Trump has a 1% chance to win. Based on all these other aggregates, we are now going to come up with a predictive percentage. Those were the most hilariously wrong, right? Like Upshot at the New York Times, for example. But, approval ratings are approval ratings. I don't think that ultimately they're really good for much aside from just understanding how, whether or not somebody has much of a mandate, right? I think they're more important for whether or not congressional allies will stick with them than it is for much anything else. Kate writes, "We're hearing an awful lot about some executive orders Trump has been signing, and that seems to be alarming. Are these fairly standard orders, but past president didn't have the spotlight on them quite so brightly, or are they things that we should actually be worried about? Things like the media blackout or the EPA or the gag order, yada, yada, yada." I mean, they've become more and more a part of how business gets done, and Obama was a huge part of that. So yeah, no, I think we are seeing more executive orders. Anonymous writes, "I called my senators and representatives today. I know you aren't interested in the day-to-day of politics or how our government is run. For the record, I don't condemn you for that. The day-to-day seems boring and petty, but I'm scared. I've never been so scared about this country. Trump's issuing executive orders left and right, and no one has been checking his power. The birth control mandate in the ACA, I have to take birth control. And I only have one ovary, so it significantly lowers my risk of cancer. And even if there was another reason, it shouldn't matter. It's an insult to that I have no say over this. If my insurance doesn't cover that, what am I supposed to do? The repeal or stripping of the ACA, my sister's going to lose her insurance. Her work considers her part-time. When that happens, she loses her APAP machine. You can only rent those through your insurance. She needs that to breathe at night. The Dakota Pipeline, Native Americans are people with effing rights. He lies about facts constantly. He gaslights people. Those are actions of an abuser and an idiot. Checks and balances aren't working. Why is no one stopping him? Why isn't the legislative branch doing anything? I hate to be hyperbolic, but I have to be honest. These are the actions of a dictator. What am I supposed to do? I feel so powerless and hopeless. You know, this is something, again, the verbiage is almost exact. Almost as exact from stuff that I read on the right during Obama's term. And it's not to say that it is more or less important. It's just something that I'm pointing out. I mean, I don't know the answers to those questions is the short thing from my perspective. But I will say this. You know, the more we focus on, like, the things that we can control on, the more we tend to feel in control of our lives. So there's that. Chris writes, I left Facebook mid-election due to politics from both sides. I trimmed my Twitter down, removing overly political tweeters. I also removed some podcasts. That includes Scott Johnson and TMS, which I'm a Patreon of. I don't mind political posting, but if I follow a person for things other than politics, I think it's unfair to expect followers to listen to political rants and diatribes not related to what you blog, post, or cast on, especially if it isn't constructive and it's just open-ended bitching. I think followers to these shows should vote with their wallets and support. If you don't like where the show is going, you don't have to support it. If you aren't supporting a show, then you can't complain that you have no leverage. I fall in the middle with politics. I'm socially more Democrat and fiscally conservative. Basically, do what makes you feel good, but take responsibility for yourself. I find myself arguing with both sides of the political spectrum, and it's exhausting. I can't wait for the Dems to get over Trump. They have been so bad or worse than Tea Party Republicans with Obama, in my opinion. I'm tired of hearing them reference racism and Nazis when discussing him in politics. Most of this is spouted by people too young to have any reference beyond what they read in the comments on Reddit. Ken writes, in Canada, we got this guy named Kevin O'Leary. He's just thrown his hat into the ring for our leadership of our major right-wing party. He's an opinionated, rich loudmouth and the host of a reality show called Dragon's Den, which is, I believe, Shark Tank in Canada. What do you think the odds are that our charismatic, progressive, yet debatably ineffective leader will be replaced by a loud, angry cartoon man? All of this has happened before and will happen again. There are many Cylons, and they have a plan. Alas, Toronto Mayor Rob Ford left us too soon. He'd be a prime candidate for the belligerent right-wing PM. And finally, Michael. All right, so Michael writes this gigantic email. And well, obviously, you'll hear why it's interesting and why I wanted to read it. But it's so long. I had to cut it down. I didn't want to because a lot of it was really, really well done. I'm just saying, if you want to write really interesting emails, please do me a favor and keep them to a readable length. Michael writes, I only recently started listening to Politics shortly before the election, and I consider myself a fan. I've listened to you for years on DTNS and back during your appearances on Twit, and only after I got tired of listening to Ben Shapiro, Milo, and the Rubin Report did I feel I need a little humor in my political podcast stream. Yes, I am a former Cruise Crew turned Trump supporter. I wanted to give you a bit of different perspective on the Book of Revelation thing from somebody who is an actual true believer of the first and last book of the Bible. Yes, I am a 6,000-year-old young earth creationist who can actually defend it, but that's a discussion for another time. And I am a scientist by trade. Yes, the rigors of computer science count and deal with complex and complicated scientific topics on a daily basis for work. Revelations is one of those books that people who study it for too long get lost in its symbolism and thus doubt any of it being real, and those who don't study it enough depend on those who study it too much for any idea of what it really says, because it's too hard for them to read without first having read and understood the other 65 books of the Bible. Is that many books of the Bible? Jeez. Important note, Sir Isaac Newton wrote more papers about his understanding of Scripture than he did about the new math he just invented. Biblical prophecy is spread throughout the Bible, both in the Old and New Testament. And the bulk of biblical prophecy has already come to pass. Those who believe in Jesus being the Messiah knows that he's had to fill some 44-plus prophecies from the books of Daniel, Isaiah, and others written hundreds of years before he was born to earn that title. So it's important to understand that most of these living prior to those prophecies being fulfilled were never meant to understand them at the time. Really, understanding prophecy takes hindsight because they are not intended for those before its coming or even for those living through it. Most people who have read Isaiah during the time of Jesus expected the Messiah to be of royal blood and not a peasant. And for this reason, if you believe in a God who has actually put all of this into play, then one should understand that it's not for them to ever decipher the book of Revelation. It's one of those books in the Bible that I least enjoy. I know that studying it won't make a damn bit of difference in the long run, or for any Christian who believes in it or not at all. We'll end up doing is putting our own characters and situations into the storylines, which is why so many other Christians have claimed everyone from Genghis Khan to Hitler is the subject. So this is obviously in reference to our continuing hope to understand the idea of globalism, and as people have written in a lot about the whatever connection it has to the book of Revelations, and the idea that a one world government is something that scares the living poop out of some folks. Again, folks, you can email me, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Remember that you can buy The Contender at thecontender.us. Music has been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. Follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere, and download archived episode of this show at bonerwars.com. If you're in San Antonio this weekend, hit me up on Snapchat. I'm going to be out for PAX and Royal Rumble. Until next time, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, but this is the only show that really talks about all three. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.